Welcome back to Experience Points, a less formal, more laid-back sort of review where I talk about games that I've played some of but haven't yet completed. And today we're going to be talking about my time with the demo of Tales of Arise, which is pretty interesting. And if you're new here, get subscribed because I'm SuperDerek. I make a bunch of thoughtful and thought-provoking videos for gamers who love RPGs. Alright, here we go. I've only played a few Tales games in the past. I've only completed a single one of them, which I reviewed. That would be Tales of Phantasia. Yeah, I just recently reviewed that for PlayStation not too long ago. So that's about the history that I have with it, besides having played a little bit of like Tales of Symphonia a long while back, small bits of Tales of Destiny a little while back, but for the most part, I'm kind of a Tales newbie. So when it comes to playing Tales of Arise, I didn't really know what much to expect, because like the last thing that I had played was really essentially just a bunch of Super Nintendo stuff that was remastered for PlayStation 1. It was a lot of fun. When I'm playing Tales of Arise, or at least the demo of Tales of Arise, my first thoughts are that it's, well, drop dead gorgeous. This game, I was playing it on PlayStation 4, just like a basic PlayStation 4, because I don't have a really fancy one, no Pro or anything, so I was playing on a PlayStation 4 in 1080p. You can see some of the gameplay of that here, and I think that it was really gorgeous. I think this might be the most aesthetically pleasing game that I've played on the PlayStation 4 so far. And I guess that now we're into the PlayStation 5 territory, that says a lot. This is a fantastic looking game. You know, it's got this very unique style where it looks like anime, essentially. It's got sort of like these very faint black outlines, like what you would see if it was something animated. It's very detailed. I did notice, though, that there was a little bit of pop-in, if that's something that you care about. I was playing it in 60 frames per second, but I don't know if it was necessarily like a solid 60 frames. I haven't really gone back to look at the footage yet, but you can see some of that here. There's a very complex scenery going on here. It was gorgeous, though. First thing, obviously, they want you to do when you walk up to the big cliff is they have this even scene where you walk up to it, and the hero, whoever you're controlling as, looks over the edge of the cliff and says, wow, that's really high up. It was kind of nice to see that sort of scripted event that didn't necessarily have a whole lot of other stuff attached to it. This one thing that they included that you could totally miss, and I'm sure that there's a few other things in there that you could also miss. I've only done so far just a single playthrough as the first character with the sword that's on fire. That looks pretty cool. I've only done that one gameplay, though. You can go back and play through as a bunch of the other characters as the main person. I mean, you can switch between characters on the fly as you play through the game, but main difference is that whoever you select, you get this extra character trailer, I guess, that kind of tells you a little bit more about their backstory, or a little bit of a teaser about what the game's going to involve for them. And I think that's kind of an interesting way to do this. This demo did not take place as like the very beginning of the game, like sometimes we see in Octopath Traveler demos or Dragon Quest XI demos. Like you can save your progress and then carry it over to the game with you. It's not really the same sort of deal, because this is more like a curated experience, probably from like, if I had to guess, probably the middle of the beginning of the game, once you finally maybe got most of your characters. One of the things that I did really like, it drops you in kind of medias res. You don't really know why these people are together, you don't know where they're from, you don't really know any of them, but they're all kind of together, and they have these skits that you can watch by hitting the R1 trigger button, which is really nice, and it plays out fully voice acted. I did this all in Japanese voice actors because I know my audience. But I'm sure that the English voice acting was also really swell. I haven't given that a listen yet, though I might go back for another playthrough and give it a look. It was really nicely voice acted in Japanese. Of course, I don't speak much Japanese, but I did notice, though, that the quests that I was doing actually involved like the scripted events, the characters talking to one another. Those weren't really voice acted. The skits were fully voice acted, which was nice. There was battle chatter, you know, banter and stuff, and that was all nice, but the actual quest that I was doing in the game, and I'm not sure if this is just because it was like a side quest or if this is a main quest, those weren't really voice acted at all, though. You had like a little grunt that they would let out here or there at the beginning of their turn speaking, which was fine. It does seem, though, in a game of this caliber that looks this way, its presentation, that the visuals of the game set up the expectation that it's going to have a higher degree of polish than it did, and I don't know why that is. If this was a cost-cutting measure, or if they're trying to maybe tradition as far as how the series has handled things up to this point. I would have personally liked to see more voice acting, just at least in the demo. It's a curious decision to include things that weren't voice acted in the demo, but you know, I'm not trying to be overly picky here. I just would have expected some of these scenes to be more voice acted, and if they're not going to provide those scenes, those quest dialogue things, if they're not going to provide voice acting to those in the demo, it makes me curious about how prevalent that will be throughout the rest of the game. Because the demo is like, it's your best foot forward, right? So you would expect that that would be the sort of thing that they would maybe even go the extra mile, make sure everything is polished, make sure everything just works the best that it can. So if this doesn't have full voice acting, and I really don't want to make this a big point, it's just what I'm thinking about right now. I don't know, I'm curious to see where the rest of the game could be. That's just because, like I said, I feel like it really sets the bar really high with everything else that it's shown here visually. So it's just that mismatch that stuck out. But like I said, the skits were fully voice acted and they were good. Again, I don't have any attachment to these characters yet, so when I see their banter with one another, it's fun. I don't have like the background of like, oh yeah, this guy's a real hard ass, or this guy's he's a real joker. I don't have any of that set up for them to really jive with me just yet, but I feel like once you're actually playing the full game, that probably won't be much of an issue. I mean, if my experience with Tales of Fantasia and its skits are anything to go by, these will be a real hoot, because that was a real highlight for me, at least during that game. And I'm sure that by now they must be even better, right? I'm pretty excited about that. Now, that leads into the gameplay, which was also pretty good. It's an action RPG with not random encounters. I do appreciate how at this point, because remember, my background is playing the PlayStation game, a remake of the Super Nintendo game. So at this point, there's no random encounters, and I really appreciate that. You can walk into them on the world map to initiate combat. One thing about that I thought was a little weird is it doesn't really matter if you approach the enemy from behind or from the front. You can't really get like a preemptive attack or anything. You can't really do that sort of thing, unfortunately, which I feel like that would have been a little extra something I would have really appreciated. I don't know, that's just something my brain has been trained to do at this point, since I have been playing a lot of Trails lately. So that might be why I'm thinking about that. It would be nice to be able to swing a sword or something outside of combat to maybe deal the first blow, which maybe might give you some sort of advantage during the combat, or maybe for some sort of other way to interact with the world around you, which is, again, gorgeous and highly detailed. I love that. I don't mean to nitpick. I'm just saying, coming from a non-Tales background, or almost completely non-Tales background, that would have been something I would have really enjoyed. Plus being able to use the sword or sword swing or something to break a pot. I don't know. I'm an easy man to please, and that's the kind of schlock that I enjoy. I don't know about you guys, but the combat itself, I feel like a little reminiscent of my first few hours with Final Fantasy VII Remake, in that it's not just a real simple hack and slash style of action RPG, which is something that is okay. I like it. It's one of those things you can get really good at, but it will probably take yourself several hours to really become really good with it, I think, where it just becomes second nature and you do the thing that you want to do when you do it. Because up in this first hour and a half that I did, I felt like I had a pretty good idea of what I was doing. I mastered some of the dodge rolls to get the extra attack on some of these big, what did they call them? Monsters. I don't know what they called them this time around. They had their own special name, but within maybe about 5 hours or so, I would probably feel more confident in it. But up to this point, I felt like I was mashing. It's not a here nor there. It's not a good or a bad. This is not a review. This is impressions, by the way. I could just hear the angry typing in the comments. Oh, you didn't spend enough time with the demo. It's like, well, I got other stuff I gotta do, but I do want to say that I enjoyed my time with the demo. And I think that the combat introduced a few extra things that I really did enjoy. Like, there's a certain point where you can target certain pieces of an enemy in order to break their core, which basically stuns them for a while, and that was really nice. And there's also the ability to do this other thing where once you've racked up enough combos and the health is low enough on the enemy, you can hit a D-pad button and it'll trigger a combo that'll either instant kill a normal enemy or just do a bunch of damage to a boss fight enemy. And that was pretty cool. I really enjoyed that as well. It's pretty hectic. I do wish that there was a little more, at least in the demo, a little more explanation about like, oh, you go here to heal, you go to the fire pit to heal up overnight, because I couldn't figure that out. I went to the town and there wasn't like an inn to stay at. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I gotta go fight the big old monster. And maybe it did say that and I just didn't notice because I am me, but maybe there will be more explanations like that as you play the full game, man. And maybe this demo was maybe aimed more toward veterans of the Tales series. I don't know, but I enjoyed it. It looks fantastic. It's musically fine. It didn't really stand out to me particularly as being incredibly impressive. It didn't steal the show or anything. It was just fine background music while I was going through, exploring a gorgeous countryside, fighting monsters, and grinding up for no real apparent reason. The demo itself, I think you should be able to do it in maybe in a half hour, but like I said, I spent like 90 minutes just on my first playthrough, and I might go back through it again sometime. I think when it does eventually come out, this is a game that I will be interested in playing, though I don't necessarily think I'm going to put it super high on the top of my list. But that's my thoughts on the game so far. Let me know what your thoughts are on your time with the demo down below, and let me know if I forgot anything. And if you're new here, I'm SuperDerek. I make a bunch of thoughtful and thought-provoking videos for gamers who love RPGs, so if you're new here, do be sure to get subscribed because you don't want to miss out on the next one.